Welcome to another continuing series of interviews about our Ukrainian Baptist Church in Toronto. It's going to be a hot day in Toronto, Saturday, August the 15th, 2009. Last week I was able to interview about 16 people, and I started this at a cella, just in the empty building next door to the worship center. And a lot of this started as a result of the guest that we have on the platform here. She's very well known to you, Oksana Kostiw-Wojtowicz. And just a couple of months ago, we were at the Eastern Conference in Hamilton, and we had a chance to visit her dad in the hospital. And I didn't realize how old he was. God has given him long years, and I believe he was 92 years old at that time. My dad is pushing 88, and he was a senior by 4 years, and there was a lot of friendship there over the years. And during that time, I was able to visit my dad's house quite a bit, just doing some cleanup, and came across a lot of his books and records. I know they're there. He's very possessive because it's his library, and yet there's such a big history there. And as a result of that, and just shortly thereafter, Dr. Kostiw passed on to glory on July the 5th, on Sunday, approximately a month ago. And the funeral was about a month ago, Friday, July the 10th. And I had an opportunity to be involved in the funeral service there, lead some songs, share some recollections. And I wrote a personal letter to the Kostiw children about just the incredible work their father did and his impact on my life, how he challenged me here in this church as well to organize our youth. And I'll share in great detail at another time about just how he always said in English, "You're doing a great work, a great job." And I know many times on that day when I stood at the back, I wasn't doing anything, Oksana. But those words, I believe, are reflective of what's been happening the last month. And that is continuing in the spirit of what Dr. Kostiw did, which was write so many life stories of people who passed on to glory from this church and across Canada. So as we spend this time together here with Oksana, this is in honor of Dr. Kostiw, and all these interviews would not have been possible if it wasn't for this book. A lot of flags in here. I put some stick-it notes in here for the people I've been speaking with. But this is the 1965 almanac that Dr. Kostiw wrote. It's all in Ukrainian, but I've been reading through that with so much passion and interest because a lot of these people that are in this story are still alive today. And so this is the period 1950 to 1965, and I'm going to ask Oksana, we're going to do a few parts. One on her recollections of the church. We will then do a little segment on the children's choir, and then if time permits, a bit on her family, and we can always catch up on that later. But we want to take advantage and opportunity of this time right now in this building to kind of just spend time on that. And my prayer is to be able to give a copy of every interview to every family member. The extended version completely to them, and then the edited versions will be part of a website that I will be launching shortly about Ukrainian Baptists. And we will have the life stories of every single person that Dr. Kostiw has written about. Even though it's in Ukrainian, my goal and passion is to get them translated into English and use this book as the base. And yet we have a 45-year gap from what happened from 1965 to 2009. And the Toronto Church will be celebrating the 60th anniversary next year. As we look across the pews, these pews used to be filled years ago. The choir was jammed to capacity, and today the numbers have dwindled and only a few people are left. And so this interview is just part of contributing to the 60th anniversary and our thoughts. And for those that have left the church years ago, may this bless you as all these interviews have. So Oksana, welcome to this platform.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you
very much. It's good to be here.
You have driven down from Indiana yesterday. I know you were stuck at the border for 3 hours. And your father just passed away a month ago. I know it's difficult days. I lost my mom 9 years ago, but I know you lost your mom almost 27 years ago.
Right.
And now both parents were put in the ground, and I asked the four of you to line up with the Kostiw name there of the legacy that your parents have left behind. And I will share later in different parts about your father's story and impact, but I don't want to take away time from you right now. I just wanted to start off and say welcome. Thank you that you could make it here today on this weekend. And the first question I wanted to ask you again is Walter Kahut shared how he came through the back door in 1968, and the first person he met was Walter Ostapchuk. And he was the first member in the church in 1950. So I'm going to ask you the same thing. There's a lot of history in your past of your family, and I'll get to that a bit later. But where I wanted to start from is, what do you remember walking into the doors of this church, because we're seated right here on the platform. And I'm not sure what year it was, and I know my family came in 1962. And in this book that your father wrote, your father and mother were members. I'll get to that in a second. I wrote that in the letter to you. They were members in 1962. Members 171. Your mother was 172. My father was 173, and my mother was 174, and my brother Mike was 175. And then in 1964, you became member 178 after Irene Siri, Steph Travinsky, yourself, and Oksana Luchishin, Volodymyr Kostiw. I believe that was your uncle, or?
No, he was no relation, but...
Okay. I remember the name, but you'll explain that later. Mm-hmm. My mother-in-law, Maria Kostiw, the Nestorenkos and Samkiws. And the book ends there. And there is so much to catch up on how many members have come in. So, Oksana, I'm going to take you back. Was it 1962?
It was. Let me just first start out by saying thank you, Peter, for taking this on. This is wonderful, and may God richly bless you for this, because lots of blessings will come out of this. So thank you.
It's in honor of your dad, and
thank you so much.
The amount of work that he did in researching. I'm a 1 to 100 in what your dad did. This is my contribution.
Well, I appreciate it so much. My whole family does, and actually the whole tribute to my father at his funeral was just unbelievable, and that just speaks to the community of the Ukrainian Baptist Church and how God's love just continues, and although people have come and gone, and we who started here are grown up and have our own children, it was unbelievable how everybody came together and just honored us. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
A new experience for me, nevertheless.
Oprah and the Larry King Show is coming, and someday I believe one of us will be on a TV program talking about your dad. And
I'm thinking that would be you, not me.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't be there if it wasn't for your father. And clips of this is going to be part of it.
Thank you.
Tell us your memories.
Well, I walked through this church. I was 13 years old, and this is incredible sitting here now at age 60. A lot of years have gone by, but we came as a family, my mother and father, and my sister Olena was 5, Taras was 4, and Natalia was about 1.5, something like that. And this became our community, and we made lots of wonderful friends here who remain family friends, which is wonderful. And I remember Sunday school. I remember young people's. We had good times. Alex Osborne used to teach us then. He played a great role in our lives, and talked to us about God and God's love. And Walter Ostapchuk, another person, Ted Dubinetsky. They used to drive us around. We went on trips. I remember going to New York, and I think, what dedication that was. Some of them had children of their own, and yet they took care of us, and so that was wonderful.
So you actually came into the church as a family, much like our family did.
Right.
And we came in November '62. So you must have come sometime during the year. Where did you come from? Where did your family come from?
Well, we came from Jersey City. Originally, we were in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, where my father had pastored a church as well. And then we moved to Jersey City there was a publishing company there, a printing press actually, called Svoboda.
Yes.
And so my father worked there for a while. And then at that time he pastored the church in New York City. So that was an experience too for us, coming from Western Canada to New York.
Wow.
It was kind of interesting, yeah. I remember that. But we weren't there very long. And then we came to Toronto, and then Dad worked for Harmony Printers, and then of course we were in this church and did work here. So.
Where are you? I shared in the letter I wrote to you at the funeral there. My parents and your parents were married on the same day. So in 1948, where were they living at that time? Was it?
Yeah, they were in Ethelbert, Manitoba, and that's where I was born.
So they got married. They got married in Manitoba. How close is that to Winnipeg, or?
I think it's about an hour away. I've never been back. I'd like to, but. That was Ethelbert, Manitoba, and then we were in Winnipeg for a while, and then moved on to Saskatoon, and then, of course, Dad was a teacher at
Ukrainian Bible
Bible
Institute.
Institute.
There's a whole
there.
history in
That was-
itself there,
yes,
and someday I'm
yes,
going to pursue
yes.
all of that. I believe.
Absolutely, and it's just, being revealed to me today after Dad's funeral how many people benefited from that, and were his students.
Yeah, one of them.
And are in this work now.
Leo Korovnik is still alive.
Absolutely,
And he's
yeah.
just finished writing an article about your dad.
That's right.
And
That's right, yeah.
there's very few that are left here. There's a whole crew that came to Toronto, John Prokopiak, brother Ostapchuk. There's a whole picture in here, Walter Kucher. And all these sat under your father. And I would love someday, I'm going to find out somehow the impact your dad had there. He was teaching New Testament, because I went through the records there. But that small school created so many pastors, especially Western Canada. Piatoha, Skrapnik, Skovorotko, all these guys sat at your father's feet.
And I was just a little child then, but I do remember them from.
I think it was 1947, 48. It ran about 10 years or so. So that would have been your birth, growing up years.
49, 50,
49.
etc. Yeah. And then, I would be remiss not to mention how much music influenced me in this church. And I just loved working with Mr. Tisliuk. He was just the greatest dedicated choir director, and I learned so much from him, and it was just such an honor singing in the choir. At the time I didn't think it was such a big deal, but when I look back now, all those things were so important and so wonderful. And I'm so proud to be a Ukrainian Baptist. It's such a rich heritage.
Yes.
And it's wonderful.
I shared to you, your father was in a debate in Toronto, Bloor and Dundas, and Terry was out, and I came out as a teenager, and they had all the different, the Catholic, the Greek Orthodox, and one Protestant guy. And your dad got up, very humble, always hunched over with his physical stature. And he got up there, and I could not believe what came out of his mouth. Just his history, which I never knew about. And he basically corrected the other two gentlemen, and I just remember watching your dad, of how what came out of him was just an encyclopedia. And it's like, wow, your father was one of I believe, the first Ukrainian Baptists in North America to get earned doctorates over 50 years ago. And what a privilege and honor. Because of that, there's no way the work that he did the rest of his life would not have been accomplished if it wasn't for his academic brilliance back then. There.
Yeah, he had a very brilliant mind, and you're right, he used it. He had a gift, and he used it for God's glory. And it's so wonderful to me that you recognize this and you're carrying it forth. This is wonderful.
Well, I have a library of 12,000 books in English. And I love books, and I connect easily with someone who writes, because I shared at your father's funeral. Biography did a questionnaire in the year 1999. 364 scholars, they asked them, who impacted you the most? Who is the number one person of the second millennium of 1,000 years? And they all agreed on Johann Gutenberg. And it's because Gutenberg created the printing press. And your father was so involved in working in that industry. And linotype or typesetting and all that stuff. And yet the quote I shared there was, why should the Bible be restricted to hands that copy it letter by letter? Why not let it fly off the page, and so that the Bible can impact everyone? And that impacted me, because it wasn't someone else who was a no-name person that created the printing press. It was created to print the Bible, and a lot of people don't realize that. And all the scholars today who are academic are benefiting because someone had a burning desire, much like God's placed in my heart the past month, to do this, a burning desire to get the Bible into people's hands. And Gutenberg was a man, I know he was, I believe, bankrupt down to his pennies, repossession, you name it, but he actually pulled that off and got the printing press created there. I'm going to go in depth later on about just that whole industry, your dad's contribution, all the articles he wrote, researching that, and the books and things I've never found out about. Here we are, seated at the piano. I'm just going to introduce this segment as I pull away in a second. I've asked Oksana to play a few songs in this incredible church and its history, and she'll play some of her favorites, a few verses, How Great Thou Art, the tribute by Andre Crouch, a little bit of that. I gave her Brother Byczkowski's song from the 1974 First World Congress in South America that he wrote. And whatever else comes to heart, we'll just tape this segment, and this will just be no talking, just her playing, and then we'll wrap it up and just spend a few minutes reflecting on her dad this past month and her mom at the piano bench here, and we'll say goodbye and continue some other time. Thank you for joining us and listening.
How Great Thou Art, what a wonderful song, one of my favorites. Mi Mili Bože. I just recall so many times when the congregation sang this song, just uplifting and praising God. So that's a beautiful song. One of my favorites, Blessed Assurance. You know, my mom and dad, long time ago, made me do this. They made me practice, and thanks, Mom and Dad, because this is the love of my life, and thanks for a Christian family, and thanks for introducing me to God. And it's a difficult time with the passing of my father, but thank you, Dad, for being faithful to the very end. Even when life was difficult, he remained faithful. And he always said to us, may the Good Shepherd always lead you. We'll miss him very much, and as have missed our mom. But what an honor and a privilege to have godly parents. Thank you, Peter.